Hi.
Hi.
Long time no see.
Yeah.
I love to
Truly.
be. I love
Truly.
to stay fascinating.
Truly fascinating.
Oh my god. Okay, you
Anyway.
want to talk? This episode is hilarious.
I love,
think.
yes, we have to talk about this episode for sure.
Sorry, there are 21 scenes. I lied to you. I said there were only 20.
You
My
lied.
memory was that there was 20. Okay.
Okay.
Shall we chat?
Yes, what are we doing? Welcome everybody to this episode of Squintcast. My name is Kelly.
And I'm Brittany.
And today we're going to talk about Bones Season 3, Episode 13, called
The Verdict in the Story, which aired on May 5th, 2008.
Wow. Here's the thing. I want to thank everybody for their patience waiting for this app to drop. I want to wish everyone a happy new year. Hope you all had good holidays, blah, 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 blah. This is not going to matter to anyone who's listening to this in the far future because they're just going to listen to them regardless of the time of year. But I know that our on time, current day listeners have been waiting for this episode because we took a little extra time for ourselves to sort of ease into the new year. And so far, so questionable. I don't know where I'm at right now with the new year, but hopefully it'll get better, is all I have to say.
It's only up from here. Only up from here.
My holidays were madness, and I'm just like, oh my God, I just needed to re-climatize myself. You know what I mean? Anyway.
Oh my God.
Thank you again for waiting for us, and I'm really happy we're back. We're in it to win it, and we're going to record our little butts off. So what are we doing today? We're going to talk about this episode. Let's just get right into it. We can catch up while we're talking.
Do you want to start with director and writer?
Sure, let's
quickly hit it off.
Quickly go through that. Yeah.
So you're the French person here, so you should probably say this name, but Genote Swark.
Oh my God.
Swark. Genote Swark.
All right, girl.
He is the person that directed this episode.
I have to look it up because I don't know what that means.
He's from Paris, France. So
We've had him before.
Yes, he directed Spaceman in a Crater.
Yes.
That was the only episode of season 2. Season 3, the only episode he directed was The Verdict in the Story. And he goes on to direct 15 episodes total of the show, 1 episode per season. And then he starts doubling up in some of the seasons like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So he does a great job, I think. I love this episode. I also like Spaceman in the Crater. So that is definitely a good sign for things to come. It is written by someone's name I can say, Christopher Ambrose. And this is the last episode that he wrote of Bones, of the 4 that he wrote. The last one was The Intern and the Incinerator. And in season 2, he wrote The Girl in Suite 2103 and The Man in the Mansion. So maybe we'll see some pictures of a character that look nothing like the character. I don't know. Maybe we won't. We'll see.
Maybe not. I was looking to Jeannot Svark. I don't know how to say his last name because Svark is not a French name. I assume it's sort of what is that? Austrian, Polish? I'm not sure.
Eastern European of some kind.
I don't know. He's definitely anyway, but Jeannot is definitely French, and I really appreciate this sort of French person's perspective on these characters. I want to mention he did also direct a show. He did a few episodes of a show called Fringe, which we've talked about, and I've told you to watch.
Yes,
and I
we
think
have.
That you would truly.
I still have not. But
I think
do
you
need to watch it.
Absolutely love that show.
I think so, based on what you've told me.
Anyway, I loved it. I thought it was great. Anyway, and what's our Christopher Ambrose is our director or writer, you said, correct?
This is the last episode ever of Bones that he writes.
Man in the Mansion.
The Man in the
and-
Mansion he did. The Girl in Suites 2103 he
Oh,
did
God,
in
I was
season
just thinking
2.
about that.
What was the one that I just said? Not the was it The Intern in the Incinerator? Let me go back.
Did he write that?
I think so. He did one other episode in this. Oops. Oopsies. Let me remind myself.
I'm curious.
Here.
Directed by-
I have it here. Bum ba da bum. So he wrote. Oh, yeah, no, the intern in the incinerator. Look at
Oh, I
me having a
love
good
that
memory.
episode.
Yeah, it's a great episode.
That
So I
episode
think
is one of my favorites. Absolutely. Love
It
that
is-
episode.
it's kind of similar in a way to this episode, which I can say it right off the bat, maybe.
Yes. Do you think so?
There's one thing that's similar, and
Okay.
that is that
Yes.
in that episode, I thought it was a Gormagon episode through and through. I thought the killer was going to be Gormagon.
But
it was-
intern in the incinerator.
Yes,
Ah.
I thought. And then this first scene, the way
Yes.
that the body is contorted, we
Yes.
open on.
Let's open.
Should I just start? So we
Go.
open on Booth and Brennan arriving at a crime scene. When they walk onto the crime scene, there is a skeleton whose hands and feet are tied up behind its back, kind of like in a circle. Its body makes a circle, but with its back on the inside of the circle. It is wild. This person hopefully was very flexible, otherwise very painful.
Yoga, it's called the bow pose.
The bow pose. Okay,
Mhm.
for all the yogis out there. So when before we even get started on this episode, I see this skeleton. I'm like, oh, here we go. Gormagon. Yes, yes. Anyway, we don't actually find out anything about this. They get called away because they have to be separated, because it turns out that Brennan's father, Max's trial is going ahead. So the episode, as you might guess by the title, is based on Max's trial. So we never actually find out what happened with this skeleton. And basically, they are just having a grand old time at the beginning of this scene, because Booth and Brennan are kind of hypothesizing about what would have happened with the body. And Booth is saying stuff that Brennan just thinks is hilarious, that his ideas are just hilarious. He's like, well, maybe the body was wrapped in a carpet and all the meaty parts were just eaten away. And she's like, meaty parts.
I know.
And then Caroline walks in and is like, okay, like, good thing you're giving so much respect to this body, you people. She's looking at them like they have 12 heads, and breaks the news, like I said, that they can't work together.
Yeah, and they're super bummed about it. And Brennan says she thought, damn, this case looks like it would have been really interesting. She was looking at these remains and how they were, set up and everything. And Booth said, well, I'll keep you posted on how it goes.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, good luck solving it without me. And I just thought that was really funny.
This episode starts out so hilarious.
It's so wacky.
Like, it's just perfect.
It's
Oh yeah. It's wacky. It's a good start to what could be a very serious episode. So
the whole thing is wacky.
Oh yeah. This whole episode. Oh, I love this episode for many, many reasons. We'll talk about it as we go.
Yes.
But do you want to talk about the Royal Diner and Booth and Brennan and Sweets having a grand old time?
I know. They show up the next scene. They're all having coffee together at the Royal Diner.
Because Sweets doesn't have an office. I don't know.
I don't know what they're doing. Anyway, diner coffee is notoriously bad. So I don't know why they do this to themselves. Anyway, Sweets is super upset that he can't continue working with them together because they're not partners for the time being anymore. And we learn while they're having this discussion about how bummed Sweets is about the fact that he can't hang out with them, and anyway, we find out that Sweets is actually the one who did the psych profile on Brennan's father, so he's a witness for the prosecution. And this is
Oops.
news. This is news to Brennan, which I think is wild. Like, how is this news to her? And Sweets thinks that Brennan is way more upset than and bothered than she is admitting to. And she keeps saying she's fine, she's fine, she's fine. And then Booth gets up from the table and says, it was a pleasure working with you. And Sweets is like, what? Wait, no. Anyway.
Come back. We can still work together. I'm doing
And
such a good job.
And then, oh no, what was it? Oh, Booth said, it's been a pleasure working with you, Sweets. And Sweets goes, really?
Really? You are?
He's so desperate for Booth's
You're gonna miss
acceptance. So funny. And then Brennan admits that she thinks Sweets is pretty good too. And anyway, it's a funny thing where they're all like, Booth's like, haha, Sweets, you really like us, you want to hang out with us. And he's like, oh, so anyway, Booth is being very flippant and saying, see you later, goodbye. And they just abandon Sweets in the diner completely. And Sweets is like so despondent that they've left him there to not only pay for the bill, but also that he can't do therapy with them anymore.
This seems so odd to me that they chose Sweets to do the profile. It seems like such a conflict of interest.
This whole
Not that I know the inner
crazy.
workings, but anyway. And then we have the credits. Dun 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 dun
Yes.
dun.
Da, da, da.
What just fell over? Something just, it was my phone. My phone fell over.
Oh,
Carry on.
No drinks, no drinks. So we open on the scene. We're all in prison with Max. We're in his little cozy little visiting holding cell that everybody seems to go to visit Max. We have Max, Russ, Brennan, and I think a forensics guy who's going to replace Brennan for the trial. And
Clark Edison.
That his name is Clark Edison.
He's very important.
We have met him before. He was here for the first episode. I think he was interviewing for Zach's job. Because Zach is going to be a witness for the prosecution. They need a forensics expert on their side who isn't Brennan. So they've got this guy, Clark. I love Clark. I loved Clark in the first episode. It was the first episode, right? Before Zach came back from his traumatic experience in the army.
Yes.
I forget.
I forget that he did that.
That he went to Iraq.
And yeah. And couldn't be the best man at Hodgins' wedding. That never actually happened. So it's good he didn't hold up his trip. Exactly. Because he was going to fight a war.
I'm pleased to say that Clark Edison is with us until the very end of time. He's with us all the way through Bones. Like he's here to the end of the series. So this is excellent. Max is not happy with this situation. He wants Brennan to testify. He wants Zach to testify because he doesn't like this guy. Because Clark is a very I don't know. I thought he was cool. He was very matter of fact and very kind of cocky. He was a little bit cocky.
He is mega cocky. That's like his number one personality characteristic. But he is also very sweet, and he is laying with a woman.
Well, that he explains to Max because obviously Clark looks very young, and Max doesn't think Clark can handle it, and then he tells Max like, "Screw you! I'm not a virgin. I can handle this shit." And Max doesn't understand why Brennan can't testify on his behalf. I'm like, I'm sorry, Max. Are you stupid? Like, Max is an idiot, right? He's just
so much so.
Does he not get that his daughter can't testify? Anyway, it's so crazy. No lawyer in their right mind is going to put Brennan on the stand.
No, that would be so stupid.
I just want to mention, too, that we have Ernie Hudson back in the role as the defense lawyer. This is Caroline's ex-husband, who's going to be defending Max, and I'm just excited. Yes, Brittany.
I was curious because we were talking about how young he is.
Yeah.
I just want to say that according to Bones Wiki, he's only 3 years younger than Temperance Brennan.
Okay. Honey, we've talked about this before.
We have issues.
These shows that show astronauts that are 22 years old and in the fucking space. I'm like, guys, you have to be 50 before you can get into fucking space. Okay? Like there's no way 20-year-olds are going up there.
No, definitely not.
Astronauts. Give me a break.
And he is only 1 year older than Zach is.
I don't care about the Zach thing, but you're telling me that Zach is 4 years younger than Temperance?
4
That's
years
insane.
younger than Temperance Brennan.
That's what you're telling me right now.
That's what I'm telling you right now.
Okay.
Born in 1981, according to his wiki. And she's in 1977. Okay. I'm throwing this show on its head.
She's born in 77. When this came out in 2008?
This came out in 2008. Season 3 came out in 2008.
So right now she's 31. Are you telling me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe
She's
31.
she's 2 years younger than I am.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, let's move on.
Sorry, yes.
The age of it all. Ugh.
That was kind of an aside, but that's fine.
Crazy.
Do you think we covered all the points from that scene? I
Yeah,
think so.
basically Max has to accept that he's got Clark Edison on his team. The Ernie Hudson's also his defense lawyer is very lucky. And then then Brennan, everybody leaves and Brennan stays behind to give Max like a couple of ties that he has to wear in court. And he's behaving like he doesn't understand anything about society. Like he's saying how he wants to wear like a really flamboyant colored tie. Brennan's arguing that he has to wear a conservative colored tie. And I'm like, okay, Max, can I just remind you that Max is a con man? Max is a con man.
So he should know this.
He should know the game. He should know this already and play along. Like he's acting like he doesn't understand. It's crazy. And he's about to pull the one of the greatest cons of all in this episode. I'm just gonna say.
Oh my God, yes. It's like almost, it's so frustrating. How does he get away with this? Anyway, I mean, or whatever.
Or whatever. Back at the lab.
Or whatever. Back in the lab. So we're back in the lab and Angela is saying over and over how much she hates this whole process. She thinks it's ridiculous that they're getting involved in this, which yeah, Angela, I agree. Anyway,
go
so
home, Angela.
They're all just watching as,
go home, Angela.
Seriously, just go home. So they're all watching on, although where's her home? Is it with Hodgins? Anyway, so they're all just watching as Clark is examining the remains or the evidence, because he's trying to look over what Zach had already looked at and see if he can find any holes in Zach's case, because that would be the best way to get Max off of the charges.
Right. So Zach, Angela, and Cam and Hodgins are all observing Clark Edison and Ernie Hudson looking at the remains of the victim, the deputy director, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. So Clark is not similar in his approach to Zach at all. He talks about the things that he sees on this body or that from this evidence. He talks about how the killer is merciful and says all these kind of qualitative things that Brennan's like, what? What are you doing? But the lawyer explains to her, like, we gotta pull at the jury's heartstrings. It's not just these are the facts and that's about it. So anyway, I think beyond looking at the remains, he also wants to take a look at, am I missing something?
No, I just think the The lawyer explaining to Brennan what reasonable doubt is ridiculous to me. I'm just
Ridiculous.
like, come on, man.
She's testified for how many cases? She knows exactly
Well,
what she's supposed to do.
yeah, because he tells her to can it when she says, well, my father did it. He killed him. Like she keeps saying it, he
Yeah.
killed him. And he's like, you got to stop saying that because we're trying
Yeah.
to plant seeds of doubt. It's about beyond reasonable doubt. And it's just like the fact that he has to explain that to her is crazy to me.
Is ridiculous. Well, Clark, beyond just looking at the evidence and trying to find holes in Zach's work on this particular case, he also wants to see other cases that Zach was involved in because he wants to see what his approach is. Because Brennan taught him a specific way, so he wants to follow that approach. That is a total conflict of interest. I'm pretty sure he would not be allowed to look at remains from other FBI cases, but anyway, that's my 2 cents. What do I know?
What do I know?
So anyway, so Caroline, collects these hooligans in the conference room at the FBI and tries to brief them to explain, without Brennan there, by the way, explain to them what they need to do to prepare for the trial. And all is well and good, and she picks little things at each of them that is pretty obvious, like Sweets use proper adult language. Zach, don't look like you got a haircut from yourself the day before. And then with Booth, I think she just does she even tell Booth to do anything? I don't even think so. Just don't wear the cocky belt.
His belt buckle.
The belt buckle.
I'm just going to mention here
Cam
too.
has to
Can
eat.
I just... Oh, Cam. Yeah.
Because her stomach was growling the last time she was on the stand, apparently.
Right. So Caroline's preparing them, but this whole Sweets using modern language thing, I've never heard him use this type of language before. It's like a new device. It's like he's purposefully using sort of immature language when he's talking about things that are official. Anyway, it doesn't matter. None of this matters because this is all to lead up to the raison d'etre, the reason we are here, which is a courtroom drama. We are in courtroom drama for the rest of this episode, which is one of my favorite places to be.
Same.
I don't know why. I just love it.
It does matter though. There is one point. There's one point of this that I did not talk about yet.
I forgot. Yes.
And that is that Angela walks out and is like, I'm not doing this. I don't care what you guys think. I cannot believe that you're even participating in this. Everyone should not participate in this. I'm not testifying. And she just leaves. And they're all like, okay, we're going to try to talk to her. That's good. Anyway, otherwise, courtroom drama. We all love it. Yes.
Courtroom drama.
Drama.
All right. I love this shit. Okay. The judge, we find out, is all business. Very serious.
He's hilarious.
And then the scene is well directed. It goes in tandem.
Yeah.
We hear in tandem the opening statements from each side. So we don't have to sit through individual. So it's like we hear different perspectives and their different arguments. Booth and Brennan are sitting on different sides of the aisle in the, I don't know what you call that, the courtroom audience or whatever. And they're whispering to each other. They're whispering to each other from across the aisle. And it's like they're in class. It's so funny to me, the way that they do this.
It's like they're passing notes.
It's so funny. So funny.
I love it. The judge even tells them off
to stop talking. Like,
stop talking. Not that it stops them, but it's actually it's really sweet.
So cute.
It's like two high school sweethearts gabbing across the aisle.
Okay.
Booth is trying to help Brennan as much as possible. They're specifically not supposed to talk in the courtroom or otherwise, but when they go for they take a 20-minute break, and while they're on this 20-minute break, they're out in the hall and Caroline's talking to the other prosecutor or the defense attorney, and he's like, okay, now just put your cup in front of your mouth because they can't know that we're talking. And
yeah, he brings her a coffee. He's like, put the cup in front of your mouth. I'm just bringing you a coffee. He's like trying to be all theatrical about it so it doesn't look like they're giving away trade secrets, you know? It's really funny.
And Caroline's looking over at him like, you fucker. And he's like, okay, a couple pieces of information for you, Bones. Yeah, Angela won't testify. And she's like, why? She should. Which is so weird. Anyway, but and then he's like, okay, also, yeah, so good luck. And just remember that you really like me and I gave you this great coffee because I'm the first witness to testify against your father. Okay, bye.
The funniest part is when the bailiff comes out and he goes, court will reconvene in 30 seconds. I was like, what? 30 seconds?
30 seconds.
That's crazy.
You would think
better hurry.
Like a 5 minute
minutes warning. Not 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Hope you went pee on the break.
Good luck. So then what do we have? Everybody's on the stand. We have this in tandem again. Everyone's testifying, showing evidence of the crime, of the murder weapon, the timeline, etc. Booth is the one who's describing the situation. He has to tell the judge and jury that Max was impersonating a priest at some point, which
so awkward.
This is so funny because he's so uncomfortable saying it. Like he was like, I don't know if I should say this. Like he tells him that Max is impersonating a priest, and the jury basically clutches its pearls about like, oh my God, like it's the most shocking thing they've ever heard. Meanwhile, never mind the guy who was killed and his body was mutilated, his guts on the ground and burning. Everybody's worried about the fact that Max impersonated a priest. That's what they're worried about?
That's the important part here, clearly.
Jesus, Murphy. I was like, get your shit together, people.
They try to talk about that. They go on and on. We don't have to go into detail, but they go on and on about this murder weapon because they're like, this is how we're gonna get him. Yeah. Max Keenan murdered the deputy director of the FBI with this shiv that he saved from his time in jail back in like 1970 or something, 1956.
This is where I want to ask, like, is Ernie Hudson a good lawyer? Because, like, how did they make this admissible? Like, I don't understand. I know they need it for the narrative of the show and finding his DNA and all that stuff, but I'm like, there's got to be, like, there's so much stuff that people find inadmissible, right? I'd be curious to talk to a lawyer about, like, that kind of thing. I have a friend who's a defense attorney. I should really ask some of these questions. I'll do an interview.
For sure. Do an interview, ask what they could have actually asked. I feel like in this case, it would have to be, not that I'm a lawyer, but I feel like they had a good reason for bringing it up because this was the shiv that was used in the murder. So how did he come to get it? And how did he come to use, has he used it before? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he did use it on someone else in prison.
He used it on someone else in prison. Anyway, it's confusing how this shiv came to be.
And then left it in a pile of his ashes underneath his body. It was just sitting there.
Really? Interesting.
It seems very odd. Anyway, all this happens.
Let's not get caught up in this shiv business.
There's lots of things that happen, but ultimately, Angela finally gets on the stand and she's like, I plead the fifth. And they're like,
maybe not.
So how are you going to, that's only if you're going to incriminate yourself. How do you plan to use the fifth? And she's like, okay, well, I plead the first because that will protect my friendship. I was like, oh my God, Legally Blonde, get off the stand. Anyway, they find her to be in contempt of court. So obviously she goes and spends a night in the clinker. Yes.
I just want to say that I hate Angela in this episode so much. I think she's being very stupid and she's lucky.
She's being so dumb.
She's lucky that she has a rich boyfriend who can pay to get her out of fucking jail.
Yes.
I just think it's funny.
If a case ends and they no longer need you as a witness because the case ended, then do you get released from prison or are you still held in contempt?
That's a good question.
Like, how does that work? Do you just wait?
Do you just wait? I think it's a separate thing. Like contempt is separate. It has nothing to
Right?
do with the trial.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
Anyway, we'll
everybody's
talk about
yelling
that
at her.
later. Yeah. And then she goes over to Brennan, and Brennan is like, "What are you doing? Just testify. I don't care." She looks at her and she's like, "Sweetie, this is
Ugh.
one of those times when I know what's right and everybody else is confused."
This is where I was
And I was like, "Huh?
Angela is like a
What is
cult
wrong with
leader.
you?"
Like she's like a cult person when she talks like this, right?
Yes.
I know it's real. I know what's right. I know the truth. It's just like, okay, crazy lady.
Cult leader with no following.
Have you seen Mother, what's it called? Mother God? Have you seen that documentary yet?
No.
What the hell's that
Mother
one called,
God.
guys? Come on. It's terrible.
I'm
It's
looking
in
this
the
up.
cult. It's called the Cult of Mother God.
The Cult of Mother God.
So good, Brittany. You have to watch it. It's
Cult of
absolutely
Mother-
crazy.
Love has won. The Cult
Love
of
has
Mother
won.
God.
It's absolutely crazy. But when Angela did this thing where she's like, I know what's right. I know what's real.
Is
Yeah,
that the
that's
one?
it. Yeah, it's absolutely insane.
My God.
And do you like watching cult things? Because it's really good.
Oh yeah, big time.
Oh, you'll love it. You'll love it.
Okay, I'm watching this.
Add it to your list, baby.
This
Mark will like it
is
too. It's wild.
crazy.
These people are
Okay.
crazy.
It's amazing how impressionable some people are.
I know, but
That they
when I
get
watched
into this so easily.
Well, when I watched that one, it was like one of the women in the cult, she was like a member of the cult, reminded me of my mother. It was right around the time my mother died this last year that I watched this thing and I was like, this woman in the cult was like, she reminded me so much of my mother would have been in this cult 100%
No.
because all they did was like smoke dope and drink all day and just like fuck around. Like my mother would have loved it. She would have loved it.
Oh my God.
And then one of the guys in the cult was just like my brother. I was like, oh my God, they would have joined it together.
And you would have been the one on the outside being like, this is not for you.
I'd be like,
Help
good
yourself.
luck.
By the
Good luck
way,
with
I don't
that.
think you will find out at the AGM, and it's kind of random, but but Planitza made a donation to Dome Lipa on behalf of your mother.
My mother?
In memory of your mother, yes. We just made a big donation, $100 each for Mark's mom, Mark's Stadamama, your mom, Helen Hochever, and there were 3 other people on the list. I can't remember.
That's wild. I've never
Anyway.
that didn't happen when my father died. That's interesting.
I think that maybe that was an oversight. Sorry.
I don't know. It's pretty wild. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You'll
Planitza.
find out at the meeting. You'll see it
My
on the
mother,
financial statements.
My mother, the renounced Catholic.
Love it. Perfect. Even better.
My hippy dippy mom. And okay, here we are.
Even better. Okay. So we're back at the visiting room in the jail.
Correct.
With Max and Russ and this defense attorney who's like, yo, if you guys think that your dad did this murder, then you at least gotta pretend that he didn't, because you gotta get it together on the stand. Because the way that they've made the case.
Russ and Brennan no, Russ, was it? Max is so unhappy about how it's going.
Yeah, it's not going well, and he's saying that maybe
he
it's
wants
time
to go
that
on the stand.
Yes. And instead they're gonna put Russ on the stand instead.
No, the lawyer doesn't want to put Russ on the stand either.
He agrees to it. Because he says that he doesn't know anything. That his dad didn't involve him at all. That if he needed him to put him on the stand, that he could.
Well, anyway, the lawyer is reluctant. He's like, eh.
Yes, he's reluctant. He is absolutely not wanting to put Max on the stand. That's for sure.
No good defense lawyer would ever put the guy on the stand. Ever. Ever.
Definitely
Ever.
not. And I feel like I'm missing something here. I didn't write it down. Anyway,
I just don't understand why everybody is itching to go on the stand. Like, I don't get this whole thing.
this is not something I would want to do. I'd be like, can I
I
opt
would
out?
be shitting my pants.
Oh yeah, like what if I say the wrong thing? Like, yes, he did it. I know for a fact he did it.
You
Put
told
him
me
in
the other day.
jail.
I mean, no.
I mean-
we haven't seen each
I
other in
mean,
months.
no.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. What?
He's a rabbi. I mean, a priest. So, yeah, I don't know. It's basically Max is just upset with how things are going because it would seem at this moment that they have a slam dunk case against him because they have the murder weapon. And I want to come back to that in a couple scenes. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And yes, we will see what happens, but Max has to go back to jail, so we don't really get a lot of further information.
No, this is a
from
very
this.
short scene. It's basically them arguing to go on the stand and the lawyer not wanting to do it. And then the prison guard comes and knocks on the door with showing Max handcuffs, like, you got to go back to your cell.
I'm like, come on.
And I was laughing because I was like, this is hilarious. Anyway, the show is really funny. The next
It's
scene
so
is
good.
really funny because Brennan is visiting Angela in jail because she's been put in jail overnight because she's in contempt of court.
Is this the same
And-
jail that Max is at, do you think?
Listen, can I talk to you? I need to say some things here.
Okay, tell me everything.
Brennan
take
spends
a drink of my milk.
so much time. Brennan spends so much time with people in jail. It's crazy to me. A, B. Brennan's pleading with Angela to testify.
Yes.
C. There is absolutely no one in this jail with her. This is the least populated jail I've ever seen in my life. There's literally no one in any of the cells around her at all. I was like, wow, Washington is a peaceful place with no people in jail. It's wild.
I was
to me.
literally just reading today that there's a detention center down at Kipling. Shoot, I think Kipling and Lakeshore, so downtown Toronto, like
Yeah.
South Toronto, they call it. And judges are shortening sentences because it's so overpopulated that it's like
overcrowded.
absolute inhumane conditions.
Yeah.
So like some serious offenders are getting their term or whatever shortened, like pedophiles, drug dealers, like all sorts of criminals that you would think would serve most of their sentence.
Yeah.
They're getting them shortened by years just so they can deal with the overcrowding problem.
Wow.
There was an
Wild.
article today on CTV News. Anyway, so this is not common that there's just no people in jail.
There's no people. This is C, I said. I think it's ABC. D, Angela basically admits to Brennan in this conversation that she thinks that her father's going to lose the trial and he's going to die.
Yes. Yeah.
And then
she's
Brennan
like, yeah.
says, can I just say, Brennan says
Yes.
to her, what did I do to deserve a friend like you? I wonder the same thing, Angela. What did Brennan do?
Whatever
What did she do?
whatever went so wrong in her life that she
What
deserved
did
a
she
friend
do
like
to
her.
deserve this? Fuck.
There-
Angela ended up making that whole day in court all about her. Like at the end of the day,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, Angela, woe is me. I don't want to testify. Fucking do your friend a solid and show up for fuck's sake. No, I gotta go into jail. Now Brennan's gotta go see her in jail. Then Brennan's got, it's just like, oh my God, you've wasted this woman's time.
And what exactly is she contributing so much to the case that would so much make the case? Like, is she gonna draw a picture of him smiling and he's gonna be like, wow, it's the same guy? Brennan in this scene, though, Angela's like, Brennan, I'm not gonna send your dad to the electric chair. And Brennan's so matter-of-factly is like, actually, I'm in Maryland. Did they use lethal injection? Like, okay. This is such an
2008?
insane conversation.
2008? What's the death penalty there?
Let's
2008.
see. Maryland death penalty.
You look that
We
up. We'll
looked
go to
this
the next
up.
scene. Yeah, we did. I think it was like 2015, maybe.
Yeah. I just
Anyway.
wrote death penalty. Penalty.
All right. Well, you look that up. Oh,
abolished
sorry, you got it?
On May 2nd, 2013.
Okay. Now we know.
So he just had to stay on death row for 5 years. That
wasn't
all.
a long time ago. Wow.
Yeah, it's not.
Crazy.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. Next scene we're back in court. Sweets is on the stand. And we learn all about his education and his background, and we come to find out that he did an undergrad at
University of Toronto.
Very exciting. He did a master's at Temple, a doctorate somewhere else, a Rhodes and Fulbright scholarship. This guy is brilliant. Also, he's 22 years old. He's going to be socially inept, incapable of having any real relationships. Absolutely wacky. Sweets is wacky if he's this brilliant at this age. Like there's something going on there.
He's so awesome.
So while Sweets is up there, we don't hear anything about what he says on the stand because we switch to Booth and Brennan sitting across from each other in the aisles, whispering to each other, discussing Sweets. Booth is calling him a geek. They're yucking it up. They're having a good time. They're like, oh, he's so geeky. Oh. And Brent's like, wow, it's impressive. It's like, yeah, he's a nerd. And they are just like, so funny. These two, they're like wisecracking.
Meanwhile, Brennan is just as much of a nerd.
I know. And then the judge is like, shut the fuck up. He's telling them to shut up. And saying, you don't whisper that quietly, guys. And he tells them to move seats. So now Brennan has to go further into the bench so that they can't talk to each other. It's so funny. It's so
And then they're telling each other off like, well, if you would have whispered quieter.
And then like
you were the one being loud.
It's so funny because they're like in school getting in trouble with the principal, but it's also just another moment of them being disrespectful to Sweets because like they're ignoring him and making fun of him. Anyway, it's funny to me. It's just funny.
Can you imagine Sweets meeting with Max on his own by his lonesome to create this psychological profile that he needed to create? He said on the stand that he met with over a span of several meetings over 6 months. So he met with him by himself.
And this is the first we're hearing of it. A, B.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how do you think that would go? I can imagine Max being so slimy. So slimy. Cagey.
And he didn't take Clark Edison seriously. How seriously do you think he was taking Sweets?
A 22-year-old. I know, right?
Oh my God. This poor guy.
Wow.
Also, the defense attorney, he's like, okay, yeah, the defense agrees that he's an expert witness. He's qualified, despite the fact that he looks like a high school volleyball player. Everyone in the scene is just like shitting on Sweets. This poor guy. Anyway,
I guess what we get out of this testimony, though, is that Sweets has a weird kind of respect for Max.
Yes.
Max is a psycho. Well, he determines basically that Max is a psycho who would kill without even thinking about it.
Yeah, with no remorse whatsoever. If he felt like he was protecting his family.
Yeah.
Makes him out to be this family man. Meanwhile, he like ditched his daughter for 20 years, 15 years?
Whatever.
Anyway, so the defense attorney, I jumped the gun a little bit a few scenes ago and said that Russ was going on the stand, but it's really in this scene that we find out that the defense attorney agreed that Russ would go on the stand. So Russ goes on the stand and Caroline starts grilling him, and very quickly we find out that his dad, Max, had set up a job interview the day after he was almost murdered through a window at the diner with Booth by this deputy director. And when he tells Caroline that he had this interview set up by Max, this was a really beautiful, wonderful point for her to sink her teeth in, because it makes it seem like he was trying to get him out of the way so that he could kill the deputy director.
Yeah.
Not good. He should not have gone on the stand.
Russ
Anyway,
is a dumb dumb.
dumb. So at this point, they have the murder weapon. They have this testimony that places Max potentially at the scene of the crime. It seems like a slam dunk. For some reason, the defense attorney, who you've already said maybe isn't very good at his job, says that he requests a summary judgment because the prosecution has, in quotes, absolutely failed to prove their case against my client. Meanwhile, murder weapon, motive, means,
Hey, man.
opportunity.
Can't blame a guy for trying, right?
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Anyway, the judge is like, no. Be ready this afternoon.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
So what do we got? Back at the lab? You're back at the lab?
Back at the lab.
Basically, Clark Edison is being harassed by Zach while he's trying to check shit out with the victim's skull. And then Clark figures out that Zach is a weirdo, so he stops taking anything he says seriously. And that's basically the scene.
Wow, yeah, that was a perfect summary of the
Zach
scene.
was just confusing matters by being very literal and obtuse, and Clark was like taking him seriously. It's sort of like when I took the dog to the vet during Christmas, and Greg kept telling stories to the vet about Cheeky and how he got this done 2 weeks ago or 3 years ago. And I was like, Greg, stop telling the vet stories because it's confusing her, and she doesn't have the ability to she doesn't
figure out
understand,
what's relevant.
Your sense of humor. She doesn't get that you're joking and this is not relevant to what's happening now. Anyway, I had to tell him to shut up so many times because he kept going, oh yeah, it's Tiki, 3 years ago, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Greg, this has nothing to do with what's happening right now.
Well, he ate a piece of chocolate 4 years ago.
Jesus, Murphy. What do we have?
The other takeaway from that scene is that Clark was putting a stain on the remains. He was doing he was taking another stab at analyzing these bones, and Zach does not like this stain being there, and it's not something that Brennan had ever taught him. This whole episode, he gets very uppity if Clark does something that Brennan has not taught him. I found that very interesting. Anyway, sorry. Okay.
Why are you sorry?
Because I held us up.
No, it's fine. So next we have, there's a break in the case, like during the courtroom stuff. So we have Sweets approaching Booth and Brennan, who are sitting outside on a courthouse bench, and they're having coffee together. I just have to say, I know we've probably mentioned it, but Booth and Brennan in this episode are just, I'm loving their rapport in this episode. They're very I get this feeling in this episode that they're best friends. Like they're just having
genuinely
the best time, and they're it's like they're not working and they're hanging out and they're having a good time, and it's interesting. Like they're dynamic, like they're getting along and yucking it up and joking around, and it's just really, it's nice because it's it isn't totally outside work. I appreciate that, but at the same time, if they're not on a case together, they're it's like a field trip or something. It's really weird. It's an interesting scenario,
It's such a sweet interaction that they have.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. You nailed it. They're like best friends. Clark comes by.
Sweets comes by.
And then Clark comes by. I jumped ahead. Sorry. Tell me more about
it's
Sweets
okay.
coming by.
Sweets approaches them and says, I want to study you. I want to study how you work together because you're so weird and different and you shouldn't work well together, but you do. And then this basically is an opportunity for Booth and Brennan to pile on to Sweets again.
Oh, he loves us.
And he's like, oh, they really likes us. He wants to spend time with us. Like, nah, 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 nah. And then Booth even starts singing that Eddie Murphy song from the Eddie Murphy comedy special, where he sings, he really likes us. He wants to spend time with us. It's like, have you ever seen the Eddie Murphy special where he's the ice cream one?
Well, he wants to love. I think I've seen a different version of it.
Oh,
Not
well,
by
he
Eddie
he
Murphy.
sings the Eddie Murphy one is like, "I got ice cream, you on welfare, your father's an alcoholic." You ever haven't seen that?
No?
It's like, "I have ice cream, you don't have ice cream, your father's an alcoholic." Like, it's just you
I'm
haven't seen
looking
that
this
one?
up on YouTube to look it up after.
Okay.
No, I know the one that's like,
It's
he
Eddie
wants to
Murphy ice
love
cream.
you.
Eddie Murphy ice cream. I wanna look it up
Eddie
too.
Murphy.
Let me look it up. Eddie Murphy. Let's look up ice cream. Ice cream.
Oh my god, it's taking
Cream.
forever to load.
Here he is.
And it's still loading. Oh my god, he looks so young.
Then your mother come to the window and be throwing change and saying, "Get your father toasted almond bar, and get your brother icy, and get yourself vanilla cone, and bring back my change." And you catch all that shit and run down the street, top speed, chasing the ice cream.
Here we go. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Wait.
I had this, I want this over here, and a toast.
I had some ice cream. I had some ice cream. And I'm gonna eat it all. I'm gonna eat it all.
The ice cream be running all down your arm and shit. Yeah.
Ice cream. I'm gonna eat all my ice cream. Ice cream. Ice cream.
No, there's be one kid on the side didn't get no ice cream, and kids don't care. They go,
You don't have no ice cream. You didn't get none. You didn't get none. You didn't get none. You didn't get none. 'Cause you are on the welfare. You can't afford it. You can't afford it. You can't afford it.
other kids join in.
You can't afford it. You can't afford it. And his father is an alcoholic. He wants some ice cream. He wants to eat some of my ice cream, but wanna lick?
Brittany. Eddie Murphy.
That's hilarious. That's
I
in
think
his
that's
prime.
from Raw. I think it's from Raw or Delirious. He has two
That's
famous
hilarious.
specials from the 80s, and that's one of them.
Oh my god.
Anyway, that's the
You want
song. I
ice
apologize.
cream? No, it's amazing. And the quality of the sound was so good. Okay.
Okay, where are we? Oh, this
Clark
is where
found
Clark
something.
runs up to them.
I
Oh
found
no,
something.
wait. They decide after all this shit. They make fun of Sweets, and then they agree to let him study them as long as he provides psych evals for them on demand whenever they're working on
Yeah.
cases. So this is a
Very-
great setup for their future
Yeah.
sort of interactions.
It's like
And then
Criminal
what
Minds over
happens?
here. Well, and then Clark has some news because he has found something. And we find out he calls Brennan away, but we don't actually find out what he finds until we end up back in the courtroom. And back in the courtroom, he starts to interrogate Zach about his findings on the skull. And he says, "Oh yeah, okay, what about this? What about that? Okay, and what about these markings?" And ultimately, we discover that their case is not so solid after all because the murder weapon that they were so sure was the murder weapon, which
Mhm.
Max had left. This is me coming back to it. That
Yes.
Max had left at the bottom
At
of
the
this
scene.
burn charred body,
Yeah.
I guess as an attempt to, I don't know why he would leave that there. As an attempt to fool them, I'm not sure.
When did he use that shiv?
In like the 1950s or 60s in jail, and then he's just kept it until then.
So it had nothing to do with the case involving the FBI agent
No,
that was killed because he was finding out about their bank
that they were
robberies?
dirty. Yeah, no,
Huh.
different altogether. So it's
All right.
so random that
It is random. I
that he had
agree.
even left this knife. That he had even left this knife at the original at the crime scene.
Yeah.
But Zach is distraught because he had missed that the murder weapon had a hilt, and that's why there was specific damaging that had happened
To the skull,
around
yeah.
where the stab wound was.
Yeah.
And he was able to see it because of this. Clark was able to see it because of this red food dye trick that he had used. So Zach has to admit on the stand that he was mistaken, which is actually interesting because during that big courtroom scene initially, when Zach was asked about the murder weapon, Caroline brings the murder weapon up to him and is like, "Are you 100% sure that this is the murder weapon?" And he says, he's like, "Well, I don't like to talk in like
Absolutes, yeah.
terms like that, but yeah, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure." So turns out he was wrong, which is insane and tears apart their entire case.
Yeah.
So now Caroline is asking for as much time as Booth needs to find the actual murder weapon.
Right. After Ernie asked for his dismissal, obviously, because they screwed up with the weapon.
Yeah.
Hey, man,
course.
gotta try. Shoot your shot,
Yeah.
right?
Shoot your shot. Why not? And sure enough, because that's where all the blood was found, Brennan gets a knock at her door sometime later. And it is Zach and Booth that are knocking on her door. I would think that Booth wouldn't be allowed to be looking for evidence because he works as her partner. But anyway.
Yeah, they're also on different sides.
And on different sides, and even Zach looking for the murder weapon. It just seems a
She
bit
shouldn't
odd that
be
they
there.
wouldn't send a whole
She
team.
shouldn't be there.
No.
She shouldn't be there.
Definitely not, especially with how this ends up. Anyway, we'll talk about that again later. And so Zach comes in, he looks around, and he finds he does find the murder weapon. It's one of the knives that she has on display, which she seems to imply when they walk in that she knows what it is. And she offers to help make their life easier and to save them some time, but they tell her no, like, we're here to look for the murder weapon. We can't get your help.
Yeah. And during that time, while Zach's looking around, Booth and Brennan have a very special moment together where Brennan talks to Booth about how she's a little bit confused by how this whole experience is making her. Yeah. And Booth gives her a pep talk, telling her that it's okay to be human and she's allowed to be emotional about things. And that's a very special moment, I found. Like, such a good friend. Booth is such a good friend.
He is a good friend.
Ugh.
He is 100,000% there.
I want you to be a good friend like that to me.
I will. We've already established we're friends, right?
Give me pep talks.
I will give you all the pep talks. You are doing great. 2024 will be your year. Now say it back to me.
Brittany, you're killing it. You're killing it. Your back's going to feel amazing tomorrow.
Back's killing
promise.
it. Okay, thank you. I'll text you. Throw my back out, lifting my child.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
You got to hold in your lower belly. Bend your knees. Use your legs.
Yes. Definitely I have to. I was saying to my coworker today, I was like, now that he's heavier, I have to be conscious about how I lift him.
You have to know everything about your body. I know myself when I do certain things. I have to brace myself. I have to hold in my lower belly. I have to bend my knees. I have to be very conscious of what I'm using because I'm too old. Because that kind of shit happens like that.
It happens so easily.
So fast.
Oh God. Here I am walking around like a penguin. Anyway, so we end up back in the courtroom. And very quickly, we go through the evidence again. And very quickly, it becomes very apparent that unfortunately, Clark Edison has made the prosecution's case even stronger because now we have the legitimate murder weapon. So the judge takes all the evidence and says to the jury, okay, don't speak to each other about the case between now and tomorrow morning. We're going to reconvene, and then the defense can make their case. Mm-hmm. So Clark is so bummed about this, and even Max is telling Clark that he did a good job.
Not before they're back in Max's visiting room, all eating Chinese food from Wong Fu's. Everybody's invited to this party in Max's little visiting room. And Max is trying to give Clark a little pep talk too, saying, it's okay, buddy.
It's okay, kid. You did a good job.
You did a good job.
That's the worst when older people call you kid. And it's like, I am a grown ass adult. Although kid, it could be in a nice way, but sometimes, some older people, like 80-year-olds, they call you kid like condescendingly, and you're like, oh, this is annoying. Anyway, moving on.
I guess I'm like that with Luke and Allie sometimes. Regardless, Ernie tells
I doubt
everybody
it.
at this table right now that he's got to cook up an alternate perpetrator. He has to think of another culprit to sort of give the jury to, like, give them an alternate,
Yeah.
like I said, culprit to the crime.
To put that reasonable doubt in their mind, that there's some reasonable doubt that Max is the one who maybe it was someone else. Maybe it wasn't
Exactly.
Max.
And then Russ is there acting like a little kid. And he's saying like, oh, you should have run. And it's just like, and Brennan's like, no, he wanted to stay for me. He wanted to stay to have a relationship with me. So then she asks Ernie. Brennan goes, okay, buddy, I'm calling him Ernie. I have no idea what the character's name is. It's Ernie
That's
Hudson.
fine.
He's amazing.
We're going with it.
Brennan asks Ernie how much time she has to cook up a good story. Like who could, how could she find another, alternate culprit? So she runs off to talk to someone, quote unquote, talk to someone.
Who is
So
obviously
anyway,
Booth.
turns out it's Booth. She's gonna go talk to Booth. And they're together at the diner. And Brennan's going over with Booth, going over some theories with him. And he basically gives
No, go on. I just have
he
question.
gives her permission. He gives her permission to go ahead and run with whatever theory she wants.
Yeah.
What was your question?
She runs out of the room. They're having dinner. She sprints out of the room like she has to go and talk to someone immediately. But then they don't meet up until the next morning over breakfast. Anyway.
I didn't notice that.
Just in case you wanted to.
I did not notice that. That's a keen eye, Brittany. I did not notice that.
Thank you.
I didn't
She rushes
care
out. She's like, I have to go.
Like, I don't know how she's able to talk to this guy. She's not supposed to talk to him. Anyway,
Yes.
although, yeah, because the trial's still ongoing. Anyway.
Yeah,
whatever.
even he says, he's like,
you can do whatever you want, he says.
Be talking?
So I think in this moment, I realized that he is agreeing to her saying that she could put him on the chopping block. Like he's kind of, that's what I gathered from this. Like I thought he was like, go ahead, use me. Use me. Like he wanted her to use him.
That's how I interpreted it too. Yeah. That's how I interpreted it. And even the way that they start the next scene, the way that they start things, Caroline's okay, well, who was anyone else? Or sorry, not Caroline. Baron, Ernie, sorry. He was asking, well, was anyone else present at all 3 locations? Yeah. And Booth is like, well, me, but I didn't kill the deputy director.
Right.
And anyway, it becomes very apparent very quickly that it is not Booth that she's throwing under. It is herself, that she's creating this case that she was at all these locations. She had motive, means, opportunity, and she did have motive, means, opportunity. She didn't kill Director Kirby, but could she have? Well, we'll find out what the jury thinks.
Mm-hmm.
So Booth says to Brennan that she has a lot of heart. And he explains to the prosecution, to the defense attorney while he's on the stand, and says that there's no way that she could have murdered someone. She wouldn't have been able to commit this murder. She couldn't have done it.
But she had time.
She did have time. Yes.
Yeah, she had time.
Because,
I like how in the middle of this cross-examination or whatever, where he's like basically pinning it on Brennan, like inadvertently.
Yeah.
Ernie also suggests that Caroline was a possible murderer because she was also present during a lot of this, and she objects, and I thought that was so funny. Objection! I just thought that was it's so funny. I just think it's so great.
Isn't the judge like, what are you objecting to? This poor judge. He's like, oh my God.
He's over it, man. He's so over it.
He's so over it. We end up with Brennan standing on the steps all
Okay.
by her lonesome.
This is a directorial choice that I love. This is something I
Yes.
think is awesome because it's like one of those jury's out, they're deliberating. Like you said, Brennan's out there all by her lonesome. Then what happens? All these people
And
come out
then
one by
people
one, right?
start walking, and someone's not going back to jail. And it's Angela, but it's also Max. So Max walks out with Russ, and he is free. And
Oh my
Brennan
God.
is very, very happy about it and hugs him. And they have a very, very long hug. And Cam and Hodgins and Zach, they're all there. Everyone's smiling. Everyone's so happy. And Sweets asks Caroline if she's going to charge Brennan because they just made a case against her.
Mm.
And Caroline is like, that's a fine woman there. You'd have to go back to school, Sweets, just to be able to figure that out. Of course, I'm not going to charge her. Like, it's a very sweet moment.
Yes.
I don't know how Angela is out of jail, but she's there as well.
Okay.
And yeah, Brennan just keeps hugging her dad and hugging her dad and hugging her dad. And Booth's kind of just standing off to the side, just watching them hug. And as beautiful as this moment is, he murdered
It's fucking
someone.
crazy. It's crazy, Brittany. It's fucking crazy. This is
No, he
crazy!
didn't. This is insane. We know that he's a murderer.
He murdered him in cold blood and then mutilated his body.
And then
gutted
left a
him,
shiv.
set him on fire. It's insane. It's insane. It's insane.
The killer was merciful.
I
It's
said
insane.
it reminded me of an episode of Matlock, and I was laughing to myself as I wrote that in my notes because I said, and I wrote in my notes, Brittany has no idea who Matlock is.
No idea. No idea. I'm like, oh yeah, Matlock.
Matlock, Matlock. Look it up, bitch. Also,
Oh my God.
Angela is wearing tights and heels. I just want to ask you, do you remember when we used to wear tights and heels?
Yes, I was in
That was
university,
so
end of high school.
stupid. Looks
Yeah, it
so
was
bad.
so stupid. There's a lot of trends that were really dumb.
She's wearing like tights and heels and like a poofy shirt. So awful.
Okay. Is this a real show? Did I just spell it
Matlock,
wrong?
yes. He plays a lawyer. He's a Southern lawyer, played by Andy Griffith, I believe. And his whole thing, his shtick was putting people on the stand. Like he was a defense lawyer, so he always had the person he was defending sitting at the table, right? Like being defended. And then they would get somebody on the stand and he would basically get them to confess to the crime that he was defending his client from. Every episode, it was like the person on the stand would confess to doing it.
Okay, to be fair, this show started before I was born. So
Of course it did.
That is why I don't know.
First episode was in 1986.
Yes, that's what
It
I'm just finding
I
out.
loved it. It was a great show.
He studied at Harvard Law School.
Yeah,
that would be funny. Yeah, it's wild to me that Max is free. It's also honestly terrifying.
It's awful. Like this guy is a con man. He's manipulative. He's a murderer. How many people do you think Max has actually murdered, do you think?
Oh, multiple people. Definitely not just Kirby. 10?
Well, he had
Maybe.
that guy who killed his wife murdered in jail.
Yep. The pig guy
Wow.
was his name.
With impunity. I tell
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know how he's free. It makes me a little nervous for Brennan. My recollection is we don't see much of him for the rest of the season, but we'll find out if that's true.
Who, Russ or Max? Sorry, I didn't hear.
Max. We have this huge
Oh.
episode about him, and then I think for the rest of the season we don't really see him. But this
Well,
is
it's only
also
a
maybe a
couple
function.
episodes left.
Yeah, and it's a function of the writer's strike, probably.
Probably, but Jesus Murphy. I can't believe this guy is free. What did you think of the episode?
I love this episode. I thought it was a great episode. I just think it's insane. How about you?
Agreed. All of the above. Who's your king of the lab?
My king of the lab is Clark Edison because he found something that Zach did not find. Also, he tells Max with a straight face that he's laying with women. And I just died. Like, died. I was laughing hysterically. I thought it was
Wild.
hilarious.
Just
How about you?
wild.
King of the lab?
This is a hard one. Because
It is a hard one because this is a good episode.
I'm with you with Clark, but I also Booth is such a good friend to Brennan. in
Yeah.
this. He was so supportive of her, even though they weren't on the same side. He was there with her the whole time, joking it up, like keeping her occupied, and like he was really. It's like he was keeping her mind off things or something, like just by hanging
Yeah.
out and joking around. And I just thought that was like, that's such a nice function of a friend, of somebody who's going through like her father's murder trial. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I agree.
I don't know, man, because Ernie Hudson was so good too.
Ernie was good.
Question. I'm gonna say Booth for myself because I just was so impressed with him as a friend
I
in
like
this
it.
episode. But I like your Clark. I like your Clark a lot.
I
Your rat.
Clark becomes one of my favorite characters of the whole show.
Mhm.
So I'm really excited. This season has brought us Sweets, who also goes on to be one of my favorites,
Yeah.
and brings Clark. So I'm really excited for next season. I think it's going to be really
You
good.
like them young, don't you? You like them so
I
young.
like him. I like him young. Yeah.
Who's your rat?
My rat is obviously Max. Fuck that guy.
Good girl. Good girl. Good girl.
Like, how
I think
on
let's
earth?
just do it. We'll both say Max is the rat for sure.
Also, you would think that he would, if you have a defense attorney, are they allowed to know that you're guilty and still prosecute the case?
Of course.
Because if you were guilty of murder and you knew that they didn't have the right murder weapon,
Yeah.
would you tell your defense attorney that
they didn't have the right murder weapon?
Yeah. Would you be like, actually, that's not what I used to murder them?
It's kind of the less you tell them, the better, right? Like the less they know.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I feel
I mean,
like
I think the evidence was pretty apparent that he did it.
Yeah.
So Ernie's job is only to cast doubt.
Yeah. It's crazy though. People that do commit murder, they do get away with it, I guess, on occasion.
Yeah, they get doubt cast, or they get, like, I have a friend who does defense. He's a defense lawyer, and he knows people are guilty, and he basically is there to get their sentence lessened. He just wants to lessen their sentences because sometimes they're like third-time offenders, and they can get treated very harshly and sent for like away for a long time. So he tries to lessen their sentences and try to give them better deals, better
maybe some sort of rehabilitation program other than just
whatever's
straight jail
available, right?
as long
Whether
as possible.
it's a better sentence or just a better plea deal, something, just to
That's
make it
crazy.
a little less harsh.
That's so wild.
It's wild.
It is wild.
Wow. All right.
Wow.
So I'm excited.
That was a quick episode.
It was very quick and dirty. We were being very quick and dirty about it, and I appreciate everyone, like I said, everyone's patience waiting for this up to drop. And I'm so grateful for everyone who listens. And I wanted to mention for everyone to check out our Instagram. You can email us at squintcastpodcast@gmail.com. Rate, review, and subscribe. Apparently it works. Apparently it means something. So
Yay.
Yay! On that note,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year! On that note, shall we say goodbye, Brittany?
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of Squintcast.
One of these days. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Squintcast with me, Kelly Booth, and my and your new friend, Brittany Elsner. The Bones theme is performed by The Crystal Method. They can be found on Instagram and YouTube at The Crystal Method and at thecrystalmethod.com. Intro and outro music is by Twisterium at Pixabay. Cover art was done by Irena Dolenc-Stajan. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Squintcast. Email us at squintcastpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me at fab_empire_ on Instagram and TikTok. Brittany is at Brittany81523 on Instagram. See you next time.